What is going on today, YouTube? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Today, we're going to be doing a little bit of more of a ranting video again, more of a just speaking video, talking about something that I really think is interesting and something that I'd just like to touch on, speak on, give you guys some information about it. It's something that you don't really hear talked about too much, but a lot of pros know it, a lot of like the lower level players know it, and it's just this big discrepancy. And it's the strength of gods and why some gods dominate like the high level and some gods dominate like lower levels. It's really easy to say something like, oh, these gods are easy to play and these gods are hard to play, but it's more than that. It comes down to more than just how the kit is, how easy it is to hit those abilities. Obviously that helps, but there's more depth to the answer, and there's more depth to just the gods kits than just it's easy versus it's hard. I've got 6 gods today that I want to talk about. There'll be like a grouping for some of the noob stomper-esque gods and then just 3 for the other one. But I'm going to start with some of the noob stompers, and it's the 3 auto attack assassins, Arachne, Baka, Kali. And then it's Zhong Kui and Geb. Those are the 5 gods I'm going to be talking about. I've got 6 gods today that I want to talk about. Idiot! I'm going to be mostly focusing on Arachne when I talk on the auto attack assassins, because she dominates the lowest level the most. But Kali and Baka can be thrown in there. And a lot of it comes down to, when you're talking about these gods, starting with Arachne, it's that she has very easy to understand abilities, very simple, and her weaknesses are not easy to exploit if you don't know how to kind of play against her. And it's this like respect thing that most players have, and this knowledge of how to play against Arachne that really separates top level from lowest level. And Arachne's strength is she's a stat checker. If she knows she can 1v1 you, she can just walk at you, you don't have any abilities up, she can just 1v1 you and kill you. The high level players understand where if I use my dash or if I don't have my ult available, this Arachne could be anywhere around the corner and I'm just dead. Obviously, sometimes they don't respect that and they walk out of tower and they die for it. But that's just ranked. Sometimes people shut their brains off. Sometimes they're on and they just make a misplay. But that's kind of what it comes down to. High level players also know how to exploit her weaknesses outside of just living against her. It's when she's weak. When Arachne uses her ult, especially early game pre-12, a lot of her engaged, a lot of her strength is gone. She no longer has that get out of jail free card that she has when her ult is available. A lot of times she uses her blink, she gets in, she webs you after, and then she uses that quick stun, and it's a single target stun. But a support who's kind of sitting around mid or kind of knows where the Arachne wants to be can peel you off. A mid laner who's playing, say, Agni, is going to be holding dash most of the time, and if he does get blinked on, he dashes and then he turns around to look to stun, and he's always getting ready for that, and he's not just wasting his stun if he doesn't know where the Arachne is. And low-level players, they don't really think like that. They sometimes even dash wave when they know the Arachne's on the other team because they want to clear it as quick as possible. And that's like a big discrepancy for those auto-attack assassins versus non-auto attack assassins. Same with Bakasura. If you have a CC immunity ability and you don't have a dasher, you have no way to get away from him. You have to use that CC immunity to get away from him first, and then you can maybe look to fight him. You don't want to fight him when all of his bodies, all of his, his vomit is there. Or Kali, you want to try to bait out her ult, try to get it out early, CC her before she can use her ult. Or if you know there's only one way for her to play it, you play it to counter that. It's the years of playing against these characters and knowing how they want to play certain scenarios and how they want to not play these scenarios that the pro players and the high level players know how to play against them. And then you think about gods like Zhong Kui. Very simple kit. And again, it can be described as this character's easy because blank. Very easy to hit abilities, very easy to understand kit, hard to punish for the most part, unless you know how to kind of counter him. And it kind of comes down to just baiting out his ult. A lot of the times, he's either going beads Aegis, so he doesn't have that engage, or he's going blink beads, and he has no form of, immunity to damage. He's got really short range, and you should use that to your advantage. If you're playing an assassin, it's a lot harder to play against him, but a lot of the times you can just bait out his ult and trade your ult for his, and it's just a win in your area because your ult is less important to most team fights than his ult is, unless he's super far behind, and at that point, you could probably just kill him through his ult. Another weak laning phase, he doesn't clear waves very quickly. A lot of the times, he's going to be getting out clears, so that way you can just out farm him, and then who's behind, he's just useless. But a lot of people in lower levels, they try to fight the Zhong and fight him in the wave, and then Zhong just heals off the wave, fights you in, it drops ult, and you're just dying because you fought him in the wave instead of just like trying to out farm him or whatever. And then other gods like Geb, you know what Geb does. Geb's done the same thing since season 1. He has one way to play the game. He's going to look to ult, he's going to look to knock up after, and he's going to shield his backline. Very simple. That's all he's going to do. But if you can ult his ult and know when his ult is coming, or use your knock-up immune ability, or jump his 2, something like that when he uses his 2, bait out Geb's shield even earlier, maybe put out a few autos onto him, make him shield himself, and then you go to his backline. Stuff like that. That's just the things like the pros kind of think of, and the high-level ranked players think of before they play against these characters. They know those weaknesses and they look to exploit them. And then you look at the high-tier gods that dominate high-tier games, and it's gods like Yemoja, Yanis set, starting with Yemoja, it's not just he's difficult to play. It's people know when to use their abilities at the high level. They know when to hold abilities, when to hold Omi, when to force abilities, when to use your ultimate, stuff like that. Yanis is the same thing. They know when to use their portal. They know when to ult in. They know when to use their ult to get out. And they use their kit less selfishly. And it's the same thing with Yemoja. A lot of ranked Yemojis are very selfish with how they play, and they look to just kind of kill people with their ones. And then you look at the SPL players, and it's sometimes they look to spam twos. Sometimes they put points into the 3 for the movement speed protections. Sometimes the damage is the best way to do it, and you need to use that damage, and you spam ones when you ult the enemy, but it changes per game. It's not the exact same way every time. And it's same with Janus. Sometimes Janus has to be a lot more selfish, and sometimes he has to look to 1v1 an enemy backliner or ult the enemy backliners. Sometimes it's different though. Sometimes you need to use your ult for safety, that mobility for your team. You're not the hyper carry. You're actually more of a support mid than an actual hard carry mid, and it changes depending on the game. But if you go to a low level game and somebody's playing Janus, you know they're looking for those 360 no scopes through a wall, guessing for that ult, clip. They don't really portal their support into the red buff when you have a little bit of pressure, because that timing matters and you need to get that speed up. And then another one is like Set. Oh, I hate talking about Set because it makes my blood boil, but he's a very hard to understand character when you don't, understand and fully grasp his kit. And I think his is probably the easiest to say, where it's just a difficulty with his kit, because he's not too complex once you start to grasp it, but it can be confusing when you first start out. But if you just look to poke, you just play for your distance, you wait for cooldowns kind of a little bit, and then you all in when the enemy uses something that's an important cooldown, like a beads, an Aegis, a dash, maybe their ultimate, whatever it is, and they know their damage. That's another thing that low level players obviously don't know because they haven't been playing for as long, but they don't know their damage as well as the higher level players. Higher level players know my ability is going to do 200. I don't have to take another tower shot here. I can just use my 1 and then keep walking away and it should kill. They're obviously not going to always be right. It's hard to be perfect with stuff like that, but they're a lot closer and a lot more technical with that. And usually a lot of times they do get it right. And I think my big point here is higher level players know how to exploit weaknesses, and they know how to use distance for safety and distance to be able to trade harder than most other players can. It's why I think actually ADC is the easiest role to tell how good a player is. A good ADC knows exactly those 55 units, and they know how to kind of step in, step out, step in, step out as they're trading. And a lower level player, they don't do that. They'll go to 30 units just so they can trade with a melee god so they can confirm more autos. And then when the melee god turns onto them, they just can hit them almost right away because the ADC has collapsed so close. Obviously, some high-level ADCs are going to do that, but they know when they get to those 30 units, they're still not in trouble, and that's why they walk up that far. They want to confirm the more autos, because it is harder to hit at 55 units. It's obvious. It's not a free auto when you're sitting at 55 units, even if you are able to be in distance and hit them. They still can juke it. You can still miss the auto, but it's still pretty guaranteed. And other gods like Thor, they can dominate low levels, but they also are so much stronger at the top levels just because of how much depth there is to their kit and how much the higher level players use it. The wall isn't just set up for your 1. The wall is a wall to get the enemy not able to go through an area. Or if the enemy team is running into your team and instead of ulting, you walk up and wall off the backliners before ulting, you've split this fight and you've kind of won it for your team. Or when to hammer in and actually commit to it. When to ult just to peel out the enemy and you don't even have to go in. You're just using it to get eyes or just see where the enemy is, or try to make them disengage the fight because you know there's no way you can win it, but you're going to try to win it by, threatening them with that ult. But yeah, that's kind of why I think some of these gods dominate low levels and some of these gods dominate high levels. It's more than just easy kit versus hard kit. They know how to exploit the weaknesses of those easier kits, and the weaknesses that you think you have with those harder gods aren't really there. You're not worried as a Yemoja when you have no CC immunity a lot of the time because you can play around it. You can go beads and then use the rest of your kit as a strength. And there's just things that you can think about over that, and it's something that comes down to high level players have a lot more time. They understand the game a lot more. They understand positioning and distance and all that a lot more. And yeah, that's kind of what it comes down to. If you start thinking about the game in a more critical way, like how do I beat this Arachne? If she webs me, what do I want to do? If she blinks onto me, what do I need to do? If she's ulting at me, what do I need to do? Sometimes it's dashing towards your teammate. Maybe you're dashing to your tower, but she's able to tower dive you there because she still has her ult up or something. You have to dash towards your support or your jungler so he can maybe out DPS the Arachne. You just got to think about stuff like that. That's what the video is about. It's just to kind of get you more thinking a little bit. What is up with these characters versus these characters? And, maybe help you try other of the harder characters, understand them, grasp them a little bit easier. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll see you guys again next time. Peace.